The news won't tell you this, but the drones are coming from the ocean. That's how we know they're not made by humans. So who do they belong to? Let's talk about it on What It All Means. Hello and hello, my name is Cornish Henry, this is a video, and you're watching What It All Means.
What It All Means.
Today we're going to talk about drones, we're going to discuss how I think about these kinds of things and why I'm not freaking out. We're going to get a little pedantic with semantics, and then I'll tell you with 100% certainty what this is, what's going to happen next, and what it all means.
What it all means.
We're just going to play that every time I say the name of the show. Okay. I am here on the blue couch with no legs, coming to you from what is no doubt a poorly edited MP4 file. Also, I think I said earlier I'm on the blue couch with no legs, but that may have been unclear. It's the couch that doesn't have legs. I have legs. I definitely have legs. Please, stop worrying about my legs. Okay, anyway, let's talk about the drones. Get into the drones. This is a drone show. Drones. Here we go. Drones. Why? And who? And huh? Are they aliens? In recent videos, we might have been a little bit early. We're not wrong, we're just early. A lot of people are still thinking that these are planes or drones, and of course that's because the news is reporting them like that. There's a lot of concern about nuclear stuff. The White House is running around in circles. Trump is saying to shoot them, but he may think we're talking about illegal aliens. But the main reason that they're not drones or planes is physics. So let's review physics, okay? This is space. Space is made of matter. And the building blocks of matter are the proton, the quark, the electron. So as you can see, this chart looks like a pizza. And that's everything that we know about physics. So now there are three main reasons why it's not pizza. There are three main reasons why it's not drones. Pizza. First, they're just too big. They're reported to be the size of a shed, or a Volkswagen Beetle, or an SUV, or a compact studio apartment, or 3 stackable kayaks, a fully grown moose, 9 cubic yards of mulch, one of those tent things that you rent for a family reunion, or a Zamboni. That is too big for something that's floating there for 6+ hours. Battery life on drones is way shorter than that, especially drones of that size. And they need some kind of propulsion system, and those make noise. Can we add that to the text on the screen? They're also not showing up on infrared, which means they're not giving off heat.
The department says these mystery drones evade detection because they don't give off heat like regular drones.
Why do you think that is? We don't know. It's just something that we haven't, it's not something that we've had our hands on. It's not something that we've experienced.
Something they hadn't experienced until now.
And if they're not giving off heat, then they're not using a propulsion system. And if they're not using a propulsion system, then they are defying our current understanding of physics. That's a huge gap in the explanation chain. Even if we grant near unlimited battery life for Zamboni-sized drones, we still have two problems. The first problem is the ocean. They're coming from the ocean.
One of their officers called 911 after seeing 50 of them come off the ocean.
Advised after we made contact with that officer that there were 50 that came off the ocean.
50?
50. That was my reaction also. There were 50 that were coming off the ocean.
And this is a sworn officer?
A sworn officer, yes. We contacted state police, we contacted the FBI, we contacted the Coast Guard, at which point the Coast Guard went out with their boat and they reported seeing 13 following their boat. And then the Coast Guard also advised that they went over them about 300 feet and had a wingspan of about 8 feet.
There are live streams from the Jersey Shore that you can watch right now that show drones continually coming out of the ocean. The news doesn't seem to want to touch this part yet, with the exception of News Nation. But the drones just keep coming. Let's be clear, we don't have anything that can do this. We have some things that can do some of these things, but they can't do all of them. We don't have transmedium drones. We don't have anything that can go from water to sky and back, especially without resistance, like in this classic Aguadilla footage where the thing splits in two and pops in and out of the water. If you want to push back on that idea and get all hand-wavy about secret government tech and tell me that The Little Mermaid was a documentary, you go right ahead. But even if we had that tech, these drones are a worldwide phenomenon. China, Iran, UK, US, Australia, those are all the countries I've heard of, and they've all reported drones.
This is a worldwide phenomenon. Something that the authorities choose to call drones, I'm more often going to call them objects, are causing mischief across the planet.
This is a worldwide phenomenon. Put it on the list thing. If it's any government, it would be a colossal act of war on a scale that we've never seen before. It's just not happening. We're seeing genuine reactions from officials who genuinely don't know what's going on, or at least the totality of it, and they don't know how to handle it. Let me point out that we're also stuck on asking if they're planes or drones, when the real question that we should be asking is, what the fuck kind of thing behaves like this? Why aren't more people recognizing that? The answer is... not quite. There you go. Directed attention. It's the same way that the conspiracy is if we went to the moon. People who investigate the moon landing are handed a gift-wrapped conspiracy that asks if we went, and this blocks the discussion of what we may have found there. It's the same reason that we talk about outer space aliens, but these dudes are actually from Earth. Our attention is directed. Plus, again, there's precedent. There's precedent for a phenomenon that mimics the things that we put in the sky.
Look at all this art that shows us UFOs in history. It was right in front of us, so who made it a mystery? Look at all this art that shows...
Speaking of mimicking things that we put in the sky, I want to take a look at this photo I found on Facebook. The caption says, "This guy was stationary at about 400 feet. Let's take this at face value for a second. The lights look okay, right? Green and red where they should be, landing lights on, anti-collision lights on the wingtips. At 400 feet high, it would be loud. But mostly I want to call your attention to the nacelles, or the ears of the plane, as pilots definitely call them. Why are they pointing down? That's not how planes work. Look at these normal-ass planes. The thing that I've been stressing in all my videos is that these drone things are mimicking stuff that we know and have seen in the sky. So keeping that in mind, when we look at this and say, what the fuck is going on here? I think we have a good explanation. But let's say I've been had, right? And this fellow here is not being truthful, and this image is debunked. I think it's important to recognize here that, again, we have to look at the totality of the evidence. I might look silly for seeing something that's not there, but that's all that happens. Debunking a single image or video doesn't mean anything about the big picture, especially when we know that deliberate fakes are seeded onto social media all the time. For the same reasons that a typo in a white paper doesn't invalidate the research, a misinterpreted photo or video does not invalidate the phenomenon. We get the phenomenon from the totality of the evidence. And this kind of line of attack is something that we see in many paranormal or esoteric phenomena, especially ones where empirical data collection can be hard to come by. If you take child past lives, for example, this is a very real phenomenon that relies almost entirely on anecdotes from children, which in turn are codified, the anecdotes, not the children, and then turned into data. This is very different from taking an empirical measurement. It's the ubiquity and uniformity of the details in the entire collection of studies that becomes the argument. Here's an aphorism for you. One false step does not a path erase. Remember this, because people arguing in bad faith with certainty love to forget it and use it against you. Let's talk about semantics.
It's time to talk about semantics. It's time to talk about semantics.
Didn't know that was going to happen. Semantics! Everyone's least favorite of the antics. I hope it's clear by now what I think is going on, but I'll just say it explicitly. There's another intelligence on our planet that's communicating with us. I believe they live in the oceans, and they've been here longer than us. We can go into why I think that in another video, but my point here is it's important to use the right words if we have them available. Precision is important. The government has changed the name of UFOs more than a few times, obviously in part to direct attention away from acknowledging their interest. But now, whatever it is that's saying hello with the drones, they're not alien and they're not extraterrestrial. Those are not the right words because they both have an off-Earth connotation. If we're stuck with the current nomenclature for these things, NHI is the best choice. If they're from Earth, they're not alien, they're native. If they're from Earth, they're not extraterrestrial, they're terrestrial. Or, as nobody says, cis-terrestrial. Other acceptable names, at least in my book, are the others, the phenomenon, or as I like to call them, the influencers. Is this important? While we're here, let's talk about some bigger picture questions about UAP. I run into this one a lot. How could advanced alien technology fly all the way across the universe just to crash in New Mexico? The most common answer I've found is the idea that our earliest radar systems were able to bring down UFOs by emitting EMPs that somehow interfered with the craft's navigation or propulsion systems. And I think this is reasonable enough. But the question itself, why would advanced alien tech crash, has a hidden human assumption baked into it. Is a crash always an accident? It's really easy to forget that so much of what we think and know is built off of these kinds of assumptions. The question is a good one if the premise is valid. We are dealing with advanced technology. That much is self-evident. And it makes perfect sense that advanced technology would be more safe and less error-prone. And that's incongruent with the historical reports of UFOs crashing just like any other human aircraft. In Philip Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, he discusses the technology that was recovered at Roswell. Stuff like fiber optics, the integrated circuit, lasers, night vision. Now, consider a big picture view of the phenomenon. Jacques Vallée's thermostat idea, right? Where these NHI are nudging human consciousness in a certain direction by taking on various forms based on contemporary technology. Now consider the impact that just fiber optics or the integrated circuit has had on humanity. So I ask again, is a crash always an accident? Could Roswell have been a temperature adjustment?
What it all means.
So is it the nuclear? Are the drones looking for nuclear weapons or dirty bombs? No. And I would be wary of any theories that depend on the drones actually being drones. They're not drones. They have red lights and green lights, but they don't have blue tooth. That's how you know. These things are so advanced that they have USB 6, Type 2. Type 2 is when the USB has trouble controlling its blood sugar. When you see patterns in life a certain number of times, the pattern starts to develop a kind of smell where you're able to just intuitively feel that something is the case before you become consciously aware of it. It's time to add the scent of this type of story to your smell bank. Smell bank. I wrote this? There's a large faction of people who think, for a variety of reasons, that these drones represent something sinister. Adding a nuclear component to any story, let alone one with as many unknowns as these drones, that can conjure up extremely strong negative emotions. And added to the immediacy of the story, everything about it just grabs all your fear-based emotions and rockets them up to a 10. This is a very inorganic set of emotions, and it can be really beneficial to understand how it subjectively feels when you experience spikes like that. These spikes are a hint that something is probably trying to make you feel this way. At the very least, you should promise yourself that if you feel a sharp external nudge in any direction on any issue, it's worth researching more. A ridiculous amount of money is spent every day in order to make you feel things that they want you to feel. This part of the show is brought to you by Marlboro Red Planets, the original Martian smoke stick. That's right, cigarettes are cool again and they'll never abandon you. Red Planets, for those who travel beyond. Moving on. Let's talk about what's going to happen and what does it all mean.
What it all means.
Here's exactly what's going to happen. Nobody knows. Sorry. I've been expecting disclosure for quite some time, and even I'm surprised at the way that it's rolling out. We're being approached the way that you would approach a scared dog. They're allowing themselves to be seen, but not too much more right now. We're being eased into the idea of weird stuff in the sky. We're being eased into the idea of a higher intelligence, not just on some planet in some galaxy, but here. It's not abstract anymore. These guys are not our neighbors, they're our roommates. Not to mention they own the house and we've been leaving our dishes and laundry everywhere. So I suspect that 3 things are going to happen in the near future, not necessarily in this order. 1, the nomenclature changes, and people widely start recognizing them as NHI instead of drones. This won't happen until the news takes the lead, and it could happen alongside a broad realization that they're coming from the ocean. 2, NHI appear everywhere in the world, making it impossible for anyone to deny the reality. And 3, the US government starts to reveal some of what it's learned and done in the last 75 years. So on what timeline is this going to happen? I don't know. Could be 5 minutes after I filmed this. Could be another year. But it's interesting to think about what it is that might be driving the timing of the next steps. Could it be human conflict? They are known to sniff around nuclear bases and disable weapons. And if they live here, they certainly wouldn't want us to cause some kind of nuclear winter. So they definitely have an interest in minimizing nuclear activity. Part of me wonders if the timing is based on our collective response to the drones, or lack thereof. People largely still don't care, and that doesn't really surprise me, right? Nothing official has been said yet, but even if they just blurted it all out, for so many people, life now is harder than it ever has been, and it can be hard to care about anything that's not already in your orbit. When they are everywhere, and the truth becomes undeniable, then I think attention will start to shift. Think about the gravity of a moment like that. What will it look like? How much of Earth will they have to be visible from for the realization to become global? I'll bet that many of us will be able to physically feel this awareness when it spreads through the planet. To me, and I know to many of you, this is clearly the most interesting thing that has ever happened. And if you, like me, understand that they don't seem to be malevolent, they don't seem to want to harm us, you should consider it your responsibility to help guide others in thinking the same, because a lot of outside voices are creating a lot of fear. As an aside, let me ask, okay, better. Let me ask you this. Does anyone else feel like time is speeding up? Over the last 5 or 10 years, I've really felt that. And recently, it's felt like it's intensifying. I'm not talking about the proportional time perception thing, right? It's not that I'm just getting older and I can't cope. Okay, fine. It's a little bit of that, but mostly I feel like time is literally speeding up. Obviously, I have no evidence for this or even like a hypothesis, but I'm very curious if any of you are feeling the same thing. Let me know in the comments. So, what does it all mean? What it all means it means that what it means is this is a monumental moment for humanity. It's a transition to a better place of understanding of who we are, who we aren't, and what actually is reality. What is existence? I'm not saying we're going to get the answers. I'm not even saying that there are answers to be found. But there is always deeper understanding to be found. We have BC and AD as dividing lines of human history. And soon we'll have PD, post-disclosure. Who we are is downstream of what we know or think we know. Disclosure will change humanity, and I believe for the better. That's not to say it won't be completely without strife, right? Change is hard, and this shit is going to get unimaginably weird. But man, what an interesting time to be alive it is. Thanks for watching. Bye!
It doesn't matter what I know.